नहीं ये वाईफाई रॉक हाँ बिल्कुल, आप इधर से कर रहे हो उधर जा रहा है। हाँ अरे नाम नहीं लग रहा है ना, पर देखो हिम संवाद के उल्टा आ रहा है। रिवर्स क्यों आ रहा है? मैं कुछ क्या है सारा ही नहीं वो आएगा। ओबीएस का इशू तो नहीं है? नहीं सर, देख लो। हाँ वो भी इससे पहले भी ऐसा ही आया क्या? अभी ये सीधा है, सही आएगा। आपने कैमरा बंद कर दिया क्या?
ये यहाँ रहेगा, लैपटॉप यहाँ रहेगा। वानी जी, ये लैपटॉप यहाँ चाहिए? नहीं चाहिए ना? रेखा 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 अच्छा, नहीं तो बंदा वहां जाना या यही रहे?
सबको सेटल करके करवा देता है।
मैं आपको दोबारा करता हूँ थोड़ी देर।
सबको पॉइंट करना वापस हो जाए, सेटल हो जाए।
दो मिनट। एक मिनट, डीसी साहब आ रहा है। अच्छा, एक मिनट पूछ लेते हैं।
आप ना तब तक बाकी दो लोगों को
हेलो,
आप तब तक ना रविंद्र जी को मत इंट्रोड्यूस करिएगा, आप निहार जी और अनूप जी को इंट्रोड्यूस करिए और रविंद्र जी को फिर करिए।
शुड वी स्टार्ट? अभी तो थोड़ी देर, चलो ऐसे भी हो जाएगा. Attention please, we are going to start next session. Respected delegates and fellow scientists, good evening to one and all present over here. We are going to start this independent panel session on Diaspora and Trans-Himalayan region. The worthy speakers of this session will be online through Zoom meeting as well as offline. So first of all, may I request all the delegates to please maintain silence. Please maintain silence so that we can proceed. So first speaker of this session is Shri Rajiv Issarji. I would like to introduce Shri Rajiv Issarji. Is a policy specialist, disaster risk reduction and recovery for building resilience team, crisis bureau, UNDP, working on disaster and climate risk governance related issues, and is the thematic lead for urban resilience and local level risk management, augmenting bottom-up resilience building approaches. He has extensive experience of working with the national government, regional intergovernment entities, and international organizations, and has anchored UNDP engagement and contribution to interagency processes, and on the Sendai framework for DRR and broader 2030 agenda. Rajiv has recently led an analytical review of past decade of work on urban resilience, reflecting the analysis and the findings in a decade of urban resilience and analytical review, and has formulated the urban risk management resilience strategies under UNDP. So, and the second speaker is Shri Robinder Sachdevji. He is very much present over here offline. So I request you to please come on the dais, sir. Before we proceed further, I would like to introduce before the audience. He is regular TV panelist, and yesterday, if you have seen this News 18 live, he has talked about the university as well as about this 3 days event. Shri Ravinder Sachdev is founder president of the Image India Institute. He is a world acknowledged authority across geopolitics, public and economic diplomacy, image and campaign management, cross-cultural communications, and affairs of the Indian diasporas. Mr. Sachdev has lived and worked in the US, Russia, Kazakhstan, and Dubai, and is now based at New Delhi. He is also trustee of the Children's Book Trust, India's oldest national children organization. Mr. Sachdev has been actively involved in grassroots and elite public affairs in the US and India. He has done extensive work on range of issues of interest to the Indian American community and US-India relations. We welcome you, sir, to this very auspicious second. Shyam Prandeji, may I request, sir, to please come on the dais and felicitate our speaker with presenting a bouquet that is made from the dry flowers from Department of Floriculture of our university. And please also present a cap and stall.
I have something to announce, not about him, but about Indian diaspora. Today, a young person of Indian origin has become the Prime Minister of Ireland. So Britain and Ireland. Prime Minister is 42, Irish Prime Minister is 43. This year for Indian diaspora.
Seva International, the leaders like Shyamji, for the last 20-25 years, been doing extensive work with the Indian diaspora. Please cheers for you, sir, and your team.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So the third speaker of this session will be Shri Anup Mudgalji. I would like to say Dr. Mudgil, former Indian High Commissioner, Mauritius, 32 years of experience in handling relations with Asian regions, Russian Federation, Central and Eastern Europe. He is a domain expert in blue economy, maritime security, development partnership, trade policy, and diaspora. I welcome you online in this session, sir. Heartiest welcome once again from University as well as from Seva International. Fourth speaker will be Dr. Nihar Ranjan Nayak. He is research fellow with MPISDA New Delhi. His area of expertise are political transition in the Eastern Himalayan region, non-traditional security, soft power diplomacy, left-wing extremism, and cooperative security in South Asia. Dr. Nayak has obtained his PhD in international politics from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He was visiting fellow to the Peace Research Institute, Oslo, in June 2006 and July 2007. So we welcome you, sir, to this auspicious occasion. And last but not the least, Shri Pavan Gupta ji. Now I would like to inform the audience that first speaker is Shri Anup Mudgil ji. So we welcome Anup Mudgil ji, former ambassador to Mauritius. He will be joining this session online. So please give him a big round of applause. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. I thought I was the third speaker, but no problem. I'm really very, very delighted to join this conference online. I thought I would be able to come and join in person, but somehow by the time I got the information about this conference, I already had other commitments. In fact, I just finished a conference about 2 hours ago, and I was waiting for this to start. I wish to thank the organizers, especially Seva International, and I have very dear, friend or co-worker there, Shri Shampar Andhe. In fact, when he sent me a message asking me to join this conference, I was wondering what exactly would be my role in talking about Himalayan sustainable development in Himalayan region. But when it comes to sustainability, I think it is not strictly limited to a regional perspective of sustainability. I think it's a global goal, and I do work on sustainable development issues in various contexts, from the blue economy, as was mentioned in the introduction, to climate change. So I thought, let me just share my broad thoughts on sustainable development and the compelling argument for sustainability. In fact, whenever I talk about sustainability, in fact, I go back to a very basic question, because sustainability in a way is very closely associated with human progress and development. I ask this question normally, what do the humans seek in their life? And as a simple answer to this question, it's a ground-based answer to this question. You ask anyone, I travel very extensively and talk to people. I talk to people right up to small villages in India. And I have also dealt with ground level people all over the world, in fact. When we ask them what exactly they want, if I simplify their answer says, we want good life. Yes. And then, in fact, those people who, in my view, already have good life, when I raise the same question with them, and their answer normally is they want still better life. Now, in fact, when I look at what is good life, in fact, again, should I say, probably rightly or wrongly, but the humanity as we know it, they see good life from the viewpoint of your capacity to consume. How much can you really consume is related to good life, which means to have a good car, to have a large house, to have the capacity of traveling fast from one place to the other, having good education, healthcare, and all that stuff, right? Now, you see, when that means good life basically means, can we supply those goods and services which people desire in their campaign to have good life or better life? Now, simply measured, in fact, for any country or globally, simply measured, that is counted in the value of the wealth the humanity generates, or maybe as we call it, the GDP. But when we look at these growth trajectories of humanity, if I take you back, say, to 1900, don't really look at the precision of the figures I'm going to mention because they're indicative. I want to make a point in my conversation. You would be surprised that the global GDP in the year 1900 was just about $3.5 trillion. Just about $3.5 trillion. Then you see, we come to fast forward by 100 years, almost, we come to the year 2000. In 2000, the global GDP was $50 trillion. Yes, which means if I ignore that small base of $3 trillion, we added $50 trillion to the global wealth in 100 years. And then in 2020, we became $100 trillion, which means we added another $50 trillion just in 20 years. First, we took 100 years, then we took just about 20 years. And now when we look at the projections of global economic growth, we would add another $50 trillion by 2034. Now, if I say 2034, which means in 14 years, we'll add another $50 trillion. And then by 2046, we will add another $50 trillion, which means just in 12 years. And then in 10 following years, just one decade, we'll add another $50 trillion. Now, you see, this is wonderful when you talk about these figures in terms of growth and wealth creation, because wealth creation, definitely, if you look into the history of human development, wealth creation has always added to the so-called standard of living for human beings, which means it could be per capita income, it could be the health standards, education standards, living standard, whatever you may call it. So it definitely has added to the standard of living. And when we grow from the current almost $100 trillion to $250 trillion by the year 2056, can you imagine what kind of wealth creation we are looking at? But now the issue is, now wealth creation does not happen in vacuum. It does not happen automatically. It has to be produced. And how do we produce wealth? Now, we produce wealth by a complex basket of inputs. Now, these inputs are material inputs, energy inputs, technology inputs, infrastructure inputs, you name it, the regulatory inputs. So a combination of inputs go into this and we achieve that growth. Now, when it comes to the material and energy inputs, now mostly, where do they come from? They come from nature. They come from exploiting the natural resources. And just look back, please. Let's look back in last, say what, 200 years, 300 years. what have we done to the environment in reaching this goal of $100 trillion? I think while I'm very proud that the humanity created this tremendous amount of wealth and capacities and capabilities, but I am not so proud when I look at the environmental impact of that growth. Now, you will ask me, should we not grow? And my answer, of course, will be no. We have to grow. We cannot really say we would not grow, because there are people who still need the benefits of growth. So, stopping growth, the answer is no. But can we grow the way we have been growing? Again, my answer is no. We cannot grow the way we have been growing because the Mother Earth's capacity, the carrying capacity, has already been overutilized several times. In fact, there is something called the Earth's overshoot day, which means the day in the year when the Earth's capacity to recreate those resources ends. And normally we have been reaching that point of Earth's overshoot day somewhere in July and August, which means every year we have been over consuming our quota, our budget, by almost 5 months. Now this thing cannot continue. We need to really pay attention to what is called sustainable development, which basically, if I say again in simple language, we need to reduce the resource intensity of growth. Let's grow, but not necessarily consume the same amount of resources that we have done in the past. Now, technology created a force multiplier for human capacity to exploit natural resources. And I am sure the technology can now provide solutions for reducing the resource intensity of growth. I always say, if you talk about my great-grandfather, my great-grandfather did not have the capacity of exploiting or quote-unquote harming the nature that much as I have, for example. Now, the issue is that the technology which gave us the full force multiplication, should we use that technology for exploiting the nature or natural resources, or harnessing the natural resources in keeping with the carrying capacity of the ecosystems? We will again rush for resources and will continue to rush for resources. And as I said, I work on blue economy. Most of the time my conversation is on the risk of over-exploiting the oceans, but I can fully understand mountains are a replica of the vulnerability of ecosystems of the oceans. If the oceans are vulnerable, the mountains are more vulnerable, in fact. We will run to the mountains for all kinds of resources like water, forest, tourism, mineral, medicinal plants, energy, so on and so forth. All right, let's do it, because there are people who live in those areas and they must enjoy the benefits of development. But then can we be wiser into developing those resources in future, which means let's utilize or develop technologies which can reduce our impact on the environment. Now, I always go and talk about circular economy, and I think it's very much applicable in the Himalayan region. I talk about conservation, which means that typical kind of triple R of conservation, which means reduce consumption, reuse, and renew or recycle wherever possible. I think we need to really bring all elements into this play, where in fact we are able to develop those resources, but wisely, and reduce its impact on the environment. Now, when it comes to Himalayan sustainable development, all these areas which I mentioned, if these areas were or have been the source of damage to the environment, these very areas could also be an opportunity for sustainable development of the region. But what we know, what we need, in fact, for that. In fact, we need to understand the carrying capacities of those ecosystems. Now, this is a very, very technical thing. In fact, I happen to also belong to earlier the Indian Forest Service before I joined Foreign Service, and my background is plant biology. So therefore, I know the complexity of understanding the ecosystem and their carrying capacity, and then relating that carrying capacity to what we do for sustainable development. I think now, since it is a session on diaspora and Himalayan region sustainable development, and I also I worked with Shyamji, and I was the founder chairman of Diaspora Research and Resource Center. So I've dealt with diaspora also very extensively in my career and post-retirement. Now, when it comes to diaspora, what role can diaspora play in helping us developing sustainably in Himalayan region? In fact, as I say, we need to understand the ecology of Himalayas, which means the technical know-how, how to understand the ecosystem. We have, I'm sure Shyamji would have already mentioned, we have something about 33 million members of Indian diaspora, and they live in more than 100 countries, which means they live everywhere where they might also have similar issues relating to the mountain economy or mountain sustainable development. And in many places I've seen with my own eyes, today is not the time to share those experiences, but world over, there are excellent examples of sustainable development in the mountains, be it in the Andes or be it in the Alps or be it in other mountain ranges. Wherever I went and wherever diaspora lives, there are, I'm not saying we don't have best practices. For example, we also do have best practices in terms of sustainable development of the mountains. Now, one thing is that diaspora could be an excellent source of know-how for understanding the mountain ecosystems and the best practices, what other countries are doing in terms of managing their mountains in a environment-friendly manner. They can be a tool or a bridge for promoting investment into sustainable development practices and projects in the Himalayan region. Now, this is again because we look at diaspora as a very major source of promoting investments, their own channels and through their advocacy route with foreign investors. I think diaspora can play a very major role in this. Then diaspora is a good source of advocacy. Shyamji just now mentioned that we have 2 young prime ministers in UK and Ireland. Now, which means what? Can you imagine the scale of influencers we have world over? And who is closest to them? The Indian diaspora. The diaspora can explain to these power centers the importance of the Himalayan ecosystems and seek support and collaboration with those countries in terms of developing these regions more sustainably. And then, in fact, there is a wonderful source where again diaspora can help, but we have our own experience involving the local communities in every bit of Himalayan development. I personally feel when management of development is done by remote centers, they are divorced from the traditional knowledge of the place. They are divorced from the sensitivities of the place. They have no emotional angle in their decision making. If the local people are involved in those developmental projects, then it is their home. And I believe very strongly that under no circumstances an individual can think of harming or hurting their own home, right? So please involve people who consider those regions as their homes. Another resources, for example, say organic agriculture. In fact, I maybe at some stage I will share those case studies where, in fact, my contacts abroad, especially in Europe and North America, because there is a huge demand for organic production, and our hills. The Indian hills are virgin land. There, the soils are completely free of contamination so far, and they can be wonderful source of organic cultivation with high value for markets abroad. I think there are so many things we can do. There are so many things we can do in energy, for example, idle energy. We can learn from best practices all over the world and use those practices for promoting local. People should have the ownership of the development process. If they own up the developmental process, they will protect it. But if they feel that somebody else is doing for them, and as a result they have no ownership, then of course they will feel hurt that somebody else is doing it in their region, right? I think involvement of local people is very important. And then of course, diaspora is also very closely connected to the heritage of Himalayas. In fact, that is where a large number of Indian diaspora people come, and they go to the Himalayas because there is a heritage connection with the Himalayas for these people. And I'm sure they would be willing to invest. They would not want their back home heritage to be damaged, right? So we can really, Shyamji, I think we need to really map the diasporic resources which could be applied in improving sustainable development in Indian Himalayas. I think there's a lot of scope for that. I have already spoken too long. I will stop here. And if there are any questions, I'll be very happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. If there is any question. No, thank you very much. Thank you, sir. So
Thank you, sir.
the second speaker is Shri Nihar Ranjan Naik ji, Research Fellow related to IDSA, New Delhi. So he will be delivering his talk online through Zoom.
Should I start? Am I audible?
So we all welcome.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good evening to everyone. My congratulations and compliments to Seva International, and especially to Sri Shyam Parandeji and his entire team for this interesting event. I think it is a very, I think very really is educating exercise to understand sustainable development activities and programs in the Himalayan region. And Shyamji, I know he has been regularly working on this issue for quite some years. Thank you very much, sir, for inviting me and sharing my perspective on this particular diaspora's role in the Himalayan region, particularly, which is very much fragile and sensitive currently under climate change impact. I must compliment my previous speaker, Ambassador Mudgal ji, for covering different aspects of the diaspora's role in the Himalayan region. But one key question is here, before I coming to my presentation, that one of the two major challenges before the Himalayan region at this moment is number one, the climate change impact. Obviously, the climatic induced disasters, which has been increased substantially in terms of frequency, in terms of its basically and severity, and obviously a lot of damage is happening to the Himalayan region. Number one, but and another important challenge in the Himalayan region when we're talking about sustainable development, we have to think about basically the massive migration happening in the Himalayan region. Because when we are going to implement any plan or any program, it is very important to know that why people are migrating from that Himalayan region, why there are several villages after villages are now basically empty. I mean, that you will find in the upper part of Nepal, in the Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, even in Bhutan also, people are migrating to other countries. In Bhutan, migrating to Australia. In the Nepal, they are migrating to Gulf countries, even in search of job, Malaysia, other European countries. Similarly, in Uttarakhand, people are leaving their ancestral properties and villages, and they're coming to plain areas like Delhi and other cities. So this is a major challenge, because if there will not be any manpower or any labor or any people living in those villages, then what is the point of doing sustainable projects? Who will implement the sustainable projects? Because outsiders cannot go to that Himalayan region or that area, Himalayan region, and to implement all those. So local people's participation is very important. So for that purposes, the diaspora's role, it is very important, and they have to basically go back to their villages. They have to reinvest all those areas. So for that, the diaspora's role, I think, is very important. There are two things here before I come to that exactly focus on the diaspora. What are the challenges? What is the strategic relevance of the Himalayas from the Indian point of view? Obviously, there are two important features of this issue. One is basically non-traditional issues, and second is the conventional or traditional security issues. Because here the conventional issues are not that pressing or that eminent at this moment, because fairly we have a basically proper arrangement between the different Himalayan states that is in place. But the non-traditional challenge is the most important here, because nearly 50% of the world's biodiversity hotspots and 32% of global protected areas lie in this mountain region, and obviously and they provide basically economic benefit to basically a large number of roughly like I think the 3 to 4 million people living in that Himalayan region, like starting from the tourism, hydroenergy, like the minerals, the medicines. So a lot of economic benefits are there. So it contributes hugely to that resources in terms of livelihood resources for millions of people in that Himalayan region, and also a large number of people living in the plain areas also. The second non-traditional issue is very important here, basically rivers. As you know, the Himalaya has been the major sources of rivers. It is called basically the third pole after Arctic and Antarctica. It is the third pole where the large amount of snow and the ice is deposited in the Himalayan region, and freshwater deposit available in the Himalayan region. That's why it is called the third pole on this earth. Around 10 rivers, international rivers, have been flowing, they are originated from this Himalayan region. So that is again important, because in case this river flow will be affected because of this under climate change impact, so millions of people obviously will be affected because of that. Around 250 million at least they are living in the Himalayan region, and 1.65 billion living in the downstream of all those rivers. And the third thing here, basically the Himalaya has been, as you know, is basically a centrality to the entire climate condition in the South Asia region. And the Himalaya basically regulates the entire southwest monsoon, which basically gives rain in the basically monsoon season starting from June to September in this subcontinent. Apart from that, most importantly, as the previous speaker, Ambassador Mudgal ji mentioned about that, there is an intrinsic connection between the Himalayas, the Indian Ocean, and the Arctic. And currently, as you know, the Arctic is Arctic snow and ice is basically melting quite rapidly. So there is a very much connection. There is interconnection between the Himalayan region and the Arctic. So if the Arctic is vulnerable, the Himalayas is equally vulnerable. The Himalaya is vulnerable, it has some impact on the Arctic region. So all this is very important. So that's why the Himalayas protection and its preservation and its particularly ecological protection is very much important. I'm not covering to the traditional the conventional security issues because that is not part of this discussion today. Particularly, I'll come to that. No, the diaspora, how the diaspora can play a major role, particularly a lot of people who are living not only Nepalese diaspora, there are millions of Nepalese diaspora, they are living in India. Similarly, a lot of Indian diaspora, they are living in the Nepal and they are go for the Bhutan also. So a lot of cross basically exchange of diaspora is happening in this region. So coming to that, what are the challenges? How to basically resolve this? Basically, as I said, the migration is the key issue here, and how people can basically go back to their vacant villages. They can stay back. They can contribute substantially in that economic activities in that region. That is the key question that needs to be discussed very in details, because those who are migrating from those Himalayan region, whether it is Nepal or Bhutan or Himalayan Indian Himalayan states, they don't want to go back to the Himalayan region. Why they don't want to go back? Because of obviously there are hardly any kind of economic opportunities are available there, and apart from that, there are no social infrastructure, proper social infrastructure available. Like hospitals are not available, road condition is not good, education systems are not very as a good condition, so that they can their kids or they can their children can basically match the kind of education being provided in the plain area on the big cities of India. So this kind of facilities, so lack of facilities also one of the major reason of migration from the Himalayan region to that plain area. That's to be given. And at the same time, a lot of incentives has to be given, basically how to develop basically the rejuvenation of water streams and basically agriculture, the traditional agricultural system in the Himalayan region. And also at the same time, equal facilities should be offered to that all those areas where people are trying to live, basically developing that infrastructure in that area. So that is very important, I believe, at this moment. I'll just end my suggestion with a couple of suggestions by that. What are the actions required at this moment? Particularly, I again saying that the returning of basically all those diaspora, like what should be their role, it is very much important. So basically, one thing that as Ambassador Mudgal talking about basically heritage, that all this kind of centers should be created in the Himalayan region. That is very important. So there is a need of research and archival basically studies for the preservation of mountain minorities, which, as you can see, we can imbibe, we can take some of the model which are being adopted in China, and that will be very useful. Then diasporas association, and basically there could be a Himalayan diaspora should be formed in those who are the country they are living. So they could be used as an ambassador of the Himalayas, and they can sensitize the global community about what are the transformation, what are the changes happening in the Himalaya region. So they can be used as the ambassador of the Himalaya region in their countries they are living currently. And also, most importantly, I have been arguing, many of you may not be agreeing with that, the disasters happening at that, no, the property has been damaged in the Himalayan region. So we're talking about the frequency and the and all those, no, disasters happening. I believe that somehow I think the demographic, I think some of the activities which are not supposed to be happening in that, no, certain areas of the Himalayan region has been somehow, I think, we have been stepping in. But that I'm trying to basically the humans interference and humans presence in some of the nature space has basically creating more damages due to that because of this disaster. So I believe that particularly that the resilience program, which is the global community talking about, like UN, UNFCCC, and other global forums, they're talking about the resilience should be there, adaptation should be there. I believe that it is basically a kind of, no, deceptive kind of, no, suggestion, because the resilience in the high Himalayan region, given its, no, loose soil, given its, no, is a young mountain, resilience, no, it is not possible. Kind of, no, the severity of the damage is happening, and the impact of the disaster is so severe. I think resilience in the Himalayan region, perhaps, I think is very difficult to do. And one can argue, but practically it has not been possible. Particularly, we have seen the damage is happening in the Uttarakhand for the last 3 to 4 years. See the damage happening in the Nepal also. So resilience, somehow I am not in favor of the resilience. Even the adaptation, yes, obviously climate change impact will be there for some time, because although the global community, they are trying to reduce the carbon emission by 2030 and commit and another 50 years. So adaptation is very much essential, but again, it should be a limited way, but more focus should be like, no, we should respect the Himalayas, nature, its ecology, and human interference in the Himalayan region should be minimized, so that, no, the damage, ecological damage should be minimum. So that should be focused, should be more on that, and the mitigation obviously is another program can be given more emphasis, and that unmindful infrastructure development, particularly unscientific construction of roads, unscientific construction of dams, hydropower dams, that needs to be very could be constructed very, given thorough discussion and scientific research on for that. So otherwise the damage will continue. And the last point I can say that the emphasis should be given more on the basically non-farm livelihood options for the basically sustainable future of the mountain people and the communities. So because basically non-farm livelihood is very important, because revival of economic activities in the Himalayan region very important, so that it will be incentivize the people to basically come back or reinvestment in their areas where people are living quite frequently. So I think these are the issues needs to be focus more in the Himalayan region, and diaspora has to play a key role in that. As I said, that they should play as a basically ambassador of that Himalayan region, and they should understand the responsibility so that because if the person who is from the Himalayan region, if he sensitizes or he or she says something in the global forum about that ecological impact or the climate changing impacts happening in the Himalayan region and why people are leaving that region, then that the global community will take their viewpoint very quite seriously. So I think all these issues, I think we should think seriously, particularly while implementing their basically sustainable goal in that Himalayan region. And the last point I would like to that the diaspora again, and not only the diaspora, even the 7 Himalayan countries, those who are sharing Himalayan border, they should also specially lobby or at the global forum, particularly UN, UNFCCC, and other global forums on the climate change or other events, basically to how to make a special policies, special programs on the Himalayan region and ecosystem. Although Nepal did that initiative, Nepal tried, and Bhutan also trying for quite some time, but being they are small countries and they are doing that alone, I think global communities is not paying enough attention to that. So I think other countries, like all the 7 countries, like we are sharing border with Himalayan countries, they should put pressure on the global community. There should be a special economic package, special development package for the Himalayan Sustainable Development Program in future. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. In case any question, I'll be happy to respond. Thank you. Hello. Unmute mic.
Shri Ravinder Sachdev ji to come on the dais and deliver his talk. He is President, the IMAG India Institute, New Delhi. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, hi. Sure. Thank you. While we get our PPT going, my name is Ravinder Sachdev. I run a private think tank known as the Imagine India Institute or Image India Institute, because we believe your image is a derivative of your imagination. If you imagine something good and perform on it, your image should go up. So that's why we've named Imagine India or Image India. I'm just waiting a minute. Sure, please. Okay, thank you very much. We've had wonderful, speakers before me, and they highlighted some very, very pertinent points, I think, to which some of us are aware or definitely needed to be reminded, right? I was actually not so surprised by the topic when I got the topic because of two counts, because, we are pretty active in the diaspora globally, and having known the wonderful, wonderful work that Seva International does and Shyamji does all across the world. So I could understand that perhaps what the thought here is that how to link the diaspora with the Himalayan region. That was my take on it. And sure, yes, the experts and areas of SDGs and resilience and disaster management, all of that are being covered, I think, in the next 2 days and various sessions, right? So my little take that I've made is on how to engage the diaspora. And the previous speaker also mentioned some very interesting points. And of course, diaspora as your ambassador. But the point is, what is the story your ambassador will tell? You have to create a story, a Trans-Himalayan or whatever story that your diaspora can sell. So create a story, give to the diaspora, and then your ambassadors can sell, even if they have the goodwill. And of course, in diasporas, while he was talking, I can understand there are two kinds of diasporas you can also see as. One are people of Himalayan origin who are across the world. Okay, that's one diaspora, I'll say, Himalayan diaspora globally. One is the wider Indian diaspora, Nepali, Bhutan diaspora, who are across the world, but do not have their origins in the Himalayas, right? So there are two kinds of diasporas. One who originally came from the hills and mountains and went, and the other are these others. So for both of these segments, in a way, we have to perhaps adopt a different strategy, a different outreach. Now that said, I'll quickly run through. Yeah, my first slide, please, sir. Thank you. Okay, I'll talk about some diaspora public diplomacy. And then I have some concrete specific points because I thought the idea is also, implementation solutions. So I have some very basic, simple action items that could be perhaps taken up. Thank you, please. Okay, little bit to give our background so you see where I'm coming from. We are a think tank and an incubator. My background is engineering. I'm into international affairs, but I've been a technology entrepreneur also. So that's why when we approach these things, we approach a little bit more from entrepreneurial approaches also. So we do advocacy, lobbying, etc. We are running a global campaign right now. In fact, I'll just mention about it briefly. We'll come back to it later. Live and let live. There is no other way for humans, nations, and man and environment other than to live and let live. If we don't let Mother Nature live, will she let us live? So it has to be a coexistence. So this Live and Let Live campaign is actually a broader campaign, not only environment, an overall global campaign. And within it, there's the lemonade movement about which I'll talk. There's a saying in English, when life gives you a lemon, make lemonade. That is when you run into any difficulties, try and figure out something out of that. So the idea of the lemonade movement is it's a movement for motivation and hope. The world of today, especially the youth, there's a lot of darkness or dark future or fears ahead. We need to spread motivation and we need to spread hope. Hope is the number one thing that brings progress and keeps us all going. We engage in media, commentary, analysis, world affairs, etc. We worked in diasporas the past 20 years, including in the United States, where the group which I am a co-founder, we are rated as the most influential in the last 90 years in the US. Shyamji would a little bit know, and he has, of course, much contributed to he's been a mentor also and a very well-wisher also. Next, please. So that's a brief background. So now we'll dive into more. Next. Okay, I use the term public diplomacy by meaning people to people. See, the governments do their work. Public diplomacy, to my mind, is that what people do across cultures, right? So if here we are looking at something between the diasporas, be it Himalayan origin, be it Indian origin, Nepali origin, but those diasporas, how can they be connecting back to the Trans-Himalayan region? The most fundamental thing to my mind is people-to-people connectivity. The more we can create that, or methods of that, the more you can create some synergies and progress or whatever. So here I've listed out some examples of public diplomacy, just as samples, which may, this is a samvad, a discussion, right, to kind of collectively think. So like, science diplomacy, for example. We've been working on an initiative with the Netherlands on the origins of zero. Some people there were very fascinated with zero. We said, okay, guys, come on, let's research. And we set up people-to-people exchanges, academics and all, etc., around the origins of zero, right? So you need to create reasons to bring people together. Cultural diplomacy with the United Arab Emirates, when Sheikh Zayed, their founder, Sheikh died, we asked them, or we suggested to Indian government, see, as public diplomacy, we work or we push all governments wherever to issue a commemorative stamp in his honor. What does it take us? You issue a stamp in honor of a leader of their country, they'll be happy. Okay, so yes, it ended up happening, but it was a joint stamp for Gandhiji and Sheikh Zayed, which was issued as a commemorative stamp. North-South Korea, peace diplomacy. I'm actually on a peace subcommittee for peace between the North and South using the Winter Olympics. The last time, Trump and Kim met was after Kim's sister met Vice President Mike Pence at a Winter Olympics in South Korea. It created some thaw. So now again, South Koreans are thinking of creating a thaw. So these are some examples I'm giving in terms of, of course, these are things that we are doing or have done, but to share with you that there can be various ways of slicing and dicing the salami. Next, please. Now coming to diaspora and, the Himalayan region. We've done something little. I'm born in Dehradun, Uttarakhand. My engineering is Pantnagar, so that's another part of hills. So I'm a child of the Himalayas and work in diasporas. Anyway, so during COVID, We also put together panels of Indian American doctors, and we arranged Facebook Live in 5 districts in Uttarakhand: Bageshwar, Pithoragarh, Tehri, Dehradun, etc. And we got 300, 400 people together sitting in Delhi or wherever. You know, getting 300, 500 people on a Facebook Live is, I mean, maybe easy, but it takes some work to do, right? So these Indian American doctors would come and answer questions or counseling to the people who were affected. Next, please. So that's the past. Now, broadly speaking, the diaspora, I mean, one, it could be charity philanthropy. Another, it could be entrepreneurship. Another, it could be partnerships across a range. We don't know, agri, tourism, whatever, etc. Multiple, you can look at buckets. Next, please. Now, here are some 3 concrete specific ideas. And Shyamji mentioned about G20 in his keynote speech at the inauguration. And this is something which I tossed with him also some months ago. He would perhaps recollect. What we are planning is that when the G20 summit leaders meeting is happening in Delhi, we will create a Diaspora 20. We are reaching out to diasporas in these 20 countries, 19 countries plus European Union, right? Political leaders, business people, media leaders, etc. And suggesting and bringing them here in planning stages that when the official G20 is happening, we would be able to get some people from these G20 countries to come to Delhi. In this, of course, I invite Seva International's leadership and partnership, sir. And also we would invite then some people from the Himalayan region. Come, let's bring some people from the Himalayan region also and participate. If this Diaspora 20, more or less, we should be able to do it. That's one concrete. The second is, again, sorry, G20. The G20 has various working groups, finance ministers, central bankers, Parliament 20, etc., etc. They do not have a Children 20 also. Now, I sit on the board of an organization known as Children's Book Trust in Delhi, which owns the world's largest doll museum, the Shankar's Doll Museum also. We publish children's books, Panchtantra and all of that. So we decided, why don't we do a Children 20? So the Children 20 that we are planning to do in Delhi, we will be reaching out to children of the expatriates who are living in Delhi. You know, you have Americans, Japanese, Koreans, embassies, and expats working in Delhi. We'll reach out to them. We'll get their children. Supposing we are estimating around 600 to 1,000 children we can get. We just did an on-the-spot painting competition with 5,000 children. Shankar's on-the-spot painting competition. Anyway, so we get around 1,000 or so these foreign kids. And because India is also a member of G20, so we bring equal number of Indian kids together for an art event. So this we are definitely planning around March. In this, we could again invite, will be a pleasure, why not get some kids from Himalayan region, some schools here, to come and also participate with these kids at this art event. The third thing, again, a concrete thing, there's an organization which takes about 40 to 50 American students, college youth, every year to different countries, 2 or 3 countries, and they stay there for a month, and they practice with local youth music, and at the end of a month, they do a joint concert. So this organization, somehow knowing or whatever, so next year they're planning to bring one group to India. So why not? There's a potential. They look at 3 cities every country. So like in India, they'll be here for 3 months, 1 month Delhi, maybe 1 month we can have it in some university anchored in the Himalayan region, and 1 other month in some other place. Thank you. Next, I'll finish quickly now. Oh yes, one unique project in social entrepreneurship, air, water. I'll just come to that. Next, please. Basically, the idea is that imagine, innovate, package the story, sell the story, create a pipeline of interested candidates, right? Measure so that they can measure their returns also, what they're wanting. Storytelling of the profitable outcomes. PR is not PR image making. PR is perform and report. Forget what PR media says. PR is perform and report. IPR, imagine, perform, report. Next, please. A quick 2 points. See, again, I think earlier speaker said, we have to reimagine or refresh or recreate or create a picture or image of this region, the Trans-Himalayan region. Can we say it's like the necklace of India? Or if not India, let's say of this region? Is it a garland of our region? We have to create that imagination in the minds of the diaspora or the wider world. Then you will get more attention, perhaps. It's something like Shyamji and others were mentioning, India's wisdom. Okay, G20 will see India's wisdom. It's like Intel Inside. So in G20 going ahead, remember there used to be computers with Intel Inside chip. So it's a good computer, right? So India's wisdom, perhaps it's coming from Himalaya inside, the spirituality, the culture, the traditions, all of that. So some of that packaging we have to do, I would think. Yeah, apply. Another thing, of course, coming back, this overall sense or a culture of motivation and hope in the region. Let's be motivated. Let's have hope. We can, whatever be the difficulties we have, right, which are given to us, Mother Nature, the various terrains and the geography, it's there. Let's make lemonade from this. Next, please. I think last maybe. Yeah. This is something, again, a concrete project. There is technology out there which creates water from air moisture. It's functioning technology. Why not? We create air water of the Himalayas and sell it branded in upscale hospitality in the rest of the country and export it also. Right now, what's going from Himalayas, from springs and original sources, air water from the clouds of Himalayas. Imagine the story you can create. Next, please. And last point, end of the day, we have to live and let live, as we say. I mean, as of course, we push more in geopolitics and all, etc. And of course, we do understand I do engage quite a lot in geopolitics. There are, frictions and tensions and different understandings between the countries in this region. Could we think that sometime in future, at least some of these disputed areas be looked at or converted as gardens of peace? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your thought-provoking this talk, and particularly your emphasis on more connectivity among the people in the diaspora. Now, I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to come on the dais and present a memento to our speaker, Shri Ravinder Sachdevji. Please give a big round of applause. Thank you very much, sir. So, with this, is a well-known speaker for and magazines and journals, and currently anchors workshops on education and modernity for parents and teachers. So we welcome you, sir, for the thought-provoking talk in this session. Now, I will again request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to please welcome our speaker by presenting bouquet, which is made from dry flowers by our Department of Floriculture, Landscape and Architecture. So, Himachali cap and stroll, a token of love from the organizers. So you are most welcome to this. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So I request now Shri Pavan Gupta ji to please deliver his talk. Thank you very much.